Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about one of the most fascinating and, let's be honest, kind of weird corners of the human mind, hypnosis. Is it a real therapeutic tool, a cheap stage trick, or is it something else entirely? Let's find out.
This quote from one of our sources just nails it, right? It paints this picture of our brain not as some impenetrable fortress, but as a system with a vulnerability, a backdoor that someone could access without the usual passwords, like logic or critical thought. So let's go see if we can find that door.
All right, so to really get this, we have to define what we're even talking about. What is a hypnotic trance? Is it just a fancy way of saying you're asleep? Turns out it's not even close.
And this is the key difference you got to understand. When you're asleep, you're unconscious. But hypnosis, it's actually the opposite. It's a state of super focused attention. Your awareness just narrows down to a tiny point, which makes you incredibly open to suggestion. And that leads to this weird thing called automatism, where you do things that feel like they're happening all by themselves.
So, the key that unlocks that mental backdoor, it all comes down to one word: suggestion. One of our Turkish sources calls it telkin, and in this state, a suggestion just slips right past your brain's security guard, that inner critic. The idea gets accepted, no questions asked, and it can directly change how you think, feel, and even act. It really is the engine that makes the whole thing run.
And wow, when that engine is pointed in the right direction, the results can be absolutely mind-blowing. Let's take a look at the incredible promise hypnosis holds as a tool for actual healing.
I mean, just look at this list of claims. It's staggering. We're talking about everything from fixing stutters and tics to ending phobias and helping with depression. But get this last one: surgical anesthesia. That's not just about calming you down before a procedure. That's about your brain literally being told to turn off pain signals. Wild.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. This is a direct quote from someone in our source material. Think about that. A 25-year-long habit gone after just one session. It's such a powerful example of how one single suggestion planted at the right time can totally rewrite decades of behavior.
And if you still need convincing of its power, check out this number: 243. That's how many real invasive surgeries a Turkish surgeon performed back in the 70s using nothing but hypnosis for the anesthetic. No drugs, no gas, just the power of suggestion, telling 243 people to ignore the pain of surgery.
But unlocking a mind like that, even when you mean well, comes with some pretty serious risks. And frankly, a lot of doubt. If suggestion is the key, what happens when it opens the wrong door? Or when you can't really trust the person holding that key? Yeah, this is where it gets a little dark. Because the mind is so suggestible under hypnosis, it can actually create false memories, vivid memories of things that never, ever happened. It's not a truth serum. People can still lie. And for some, the experience can actually cause anxiety or insomnia. That line between therapy and manipulation can get really, really blurry.
Let me share a personal story from our source material that kind of shows how things can go sideways, even when it all seems like harmless fun. So this person is at a university event. So boom, they're in a trance, and the stage hypnotist tells them to get up and dance like a rapper. And they do it in front of everybody. It seems like a pretty standard, funny bit of stage hypnosis, right? What's the harm?
Well, here's the harm. Afterwards, they were completely mortified. It wasn't just embarrassing, it triggered a genuine personality crisis. It made them question who they were. And it's a huge reminder that you're playing around with someone's core sense of self, and the fallout can be really damaging.
So you're probably wondering, who's most likely to be susceptible to all this? Well, the answer might actually surprise you. Some sources claim it's not the people you might think. On the contrary, they suggest that more intelligent, extroverted people, and women, more often than men, are actually easier to hypnotize. Maybe because it takes real focus and imagination to let go.
Of course, an idea this powerful, this unsettling, this cool, it was never going to stay locked away in a therapist's office. It was bound to break out into pop culture. And sometimes, it becomes the title of a whole pop album.
Back in 2008, The Turkish pop star Hande Yener did something really bold. She released an album called Hypnosis. That's Turkish for hypnosis. It was a complete pivot from her usual stuff, a dive into this really electronic sound that was meant to be, well, hypnotic.
And the reaction was intense. People were totally split. Some critics called it a brave, experimental masterpiece. But a lot of fans and other critics, they called it career suicide. They thought it sounded way too much like Madonna and that she was abandoning the very people who made her famous. And the criticism got brutally specific. I mean, one person pointed out that the main synthesizer sound on the title track was literally a default loop from Apple's GarageBand. The music videos were accused of just ripping off Madonna's style. It kind of shows you how a deep, complex idea like hypnosis can get watered down into something people just dismiss as shallow or kitsch. Okay, so after all that, the incredible healing, the public humiliation, the pop albums, where does that leave us? What's the final suggestion we should walk away with here?
Well, it really comes down to these two camps, right? On one side, you have the believers. They see hypnosis as a legitimate key to the subconscious, a tool that can heal and unlock our potential. Then you have the skeptics. They see a parlor trick where people are either just playing along or, even worse, are at risk of having their memories messed with.
The truth, as it so often does, seems to be somewhere in the middle. Hypnosis isn't magic. You can't be made to rob a bank if you don't want to, but it's not a total fraud either. It's a real psychological state that proves just how open our minds are to suggestion. It's a feature of our brains, not a bug.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. You ever been driving and you suddenly snap out of it and realize you don't remember the last few miles? Or you find yourself scrolling endlessly on your phone? If our minds have this backdoor built right in, how much of our everyday life is already spent in some kind of trance? And what suggestions are we letting in without even realizing it? Thanks for watching.